Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Hacking with Friends. My name is Kody Kinsey, I am a security researcher with Varonis, and this is Michael, our production assistant, administrator, executive, our production executive, who's joined us here today to show off...
Saved yourself there, boy.
Yeah, who showed off some of his coding skills for once. Well, we've taken the time to write some ransomware for you. I know that's what everybody secretly has been wanting, so Michael and I took some time out of our day to make some nasty ransomware just for all of you guys, so we can learn a little bit about how it works and also how to protect against it.
Some ransomware may be better than others.
Yes, some ransomware may be more cross-platform and shorter than others. But alright, so when we talk about ransomware, we've talked about encryption and hashing and other sorts of stuff on the show before, but this is really the evil side of that, where we are taking data and we're trying to scramble it so much that it is completely impossible to retrieve it without a certain key. Now there's different ways of doing this, and while we've covered the difference between hashing and encryption before, the real key thing here is that the data can be retrieved. Unlike a one-way hash where we're just getting a number and we might be able to reverse like a string or a password, it would be very, very difficult for us to basically reverse a document from a hash. So when we're doing this, what we're trying to do is basically go around the system, find important files, and then kind of erase them, but in a way that can be reversed because we're scrambling the data, so it's about as good as just complete noise. And
the important bit there is like ransomware, right? You can't just destroy the file, right?
Right. So, of course, the ransom part of that is having the key to reverse the damage. So because we haven't deleted the files, we've only temporarily made them inaccessible. An attacker might be able to then drop a ransom note that says, hey, send some Bitcoin to this address and make a lot of money if they hit enough targets. Now, this is also frequently happening when there's a lot of computers that are vulnerable to a CSV that's been released and is out there and has a proof of concept. Because if you're connected to the internet, and especially if it's like a wormable bug that can be detected remotely on Shodan or something like that, it's possible for someone to deploy a piece of ransomware like the WannaCry attack that goes worldwide and targets many, many vulnerable systems. So while we're going to just show you guys a little baby version of this today that does some basic encryption and show off how it works, this really isn't very complicated stuff. When we're talking about like different types of malware, ransomware is really one of the, at least most strands of ransomware, are one of the more basic types. Because all it's really doing is searching the file system and encrypting stuff that it finds interesting, and then providing an avenue for someone to, just provide payment to whoever has done this terrible crime.
You keep mentioning interesting files. I don't know if anyone's done this, but a thought just occurred to me. You could also, target like IoT products, like security cameras on, they're easily accessible on Shodan, and just say like, if you want access to this device back, then you have to you
can either buy a new toaster or you can give me $7.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Which one's cheaper?
Yeah, and that's probably going to be the future of how these ransomware attacks work. As we have more devices that are connected and vulnerable, we're going to see more and more people be able to basically either grab access to them or disable them until someone pays a ransom.
Give me the money or the toaster gets it.
Exactly. And there's a lot of cases in the news of major corporations, city governments, I believe a major metropolitan transportation system, all taken down by ransomware attacks. And these can strike anywhere that there's a vulnerability. So defenders are really kind of at a disadvantage here because a single vulnerability that they don't patch or know about can lead to a ransomware infection that takes out a lot of really critical files.
Yeah, that's something I always stress when I'm talking about security, is defending is really hard because you only have to get it wrong once. Whereas the attacker can mess up a million times, get it right once, and your system's compromised, right? I even remember seeing a story of you would think places in the government like police departments would be very well secured, but I remember one news story police department got hit by ransomware 2 or 3 times in the series of 6 months.
Ouch.
Yeah, and you gotta imagine a lot of vulnerable systems, they may not have the budget for security, but they might be very important services. So, ransomware can be disproportionately effective sometimes.
Yeah, and it's especially effective against organizations that rely on critical records. This is going to be hospitals, police departments, universities. All of these institutions would basically crumble if they didn't know who has progressed how far in a particular grade, or who's been charged with what, or who's allergic to what. You basically can't treat patients if you don't know their medical history. So it would be a particularly devastating attack if, let's say, a hospital files were to be encrypted, which has actually happened multiple times.
I was going to say, too, I don't know if this is 100% fact, but logically it makes sense. Like, it also deletes a layer of protection because, if I were trying to steal a database, I maybe would have to decrypt that database at some point to get access to those files. But with ransomware, I don't care whether that database is encrypted or not. I'm encrypting it again. So, like, you're cutting into some of those layers of protection people might have in place.
Yeah, like being able to detect files being exfiltrated or something like that.
Right, exactly.
Basically, this is the attacker making the gamble that your files are worth more to you
than they are to anyone else.
Yeah. Right. So, like, if they're blackmailing you because there's a bunch of juicy stuff in there, that's a whole other game. That's where you might get someone who's more interested in the contents of the communication, wants to sneak in, find stuff, get evidence, and exfiltrate it. That requires a bit more skill here. Really what we're doing is we're just assuming that you're going to be upset if all your stuff is gone and putting a price tag on that. So depending on your business model, it could be a really easy decision to give up a couple $1,000s even just to get access to a couple files that are critical, for example, paying your staff or making sure that people graduate on time.
Yeah, we're kind of taking the burn it down approach as opposed to anything else.
Right, and so this is also a tricky subject because there are solutions out there for regular people who want to defend against this sort of stuff, or at least identify programs that are acting suspiciously. But encrypting a whole bunch of files is actually sometimes normal behavior for certain types of programs. For example, if you have Adobe Creative Suite installed, or if you have nation-state malware installed, posing as Adobe Creative Suite, I guess, then you might find that it is rapidly encrypting update files or decrypting them. And some of this might be to, I guess, prevent it from being intercepted or modified in transit. But it's interesting to note that you can get some false positives with normal programs just doing normal program stuff. Sometimes when you have, for example, a cap on how many files can be encrypted before you get a notification.
And this, again, is one of those cases where, ironically, trying to be more secure might make you somewhat more vulnerable. Because if you encrypt stuff frequently on your computer and you have, maybe programs running in the background to encrypt your files, to secure them for you, you might not notice it if another program or ransomware started encrypting a bunch of stuff. You might have turned off those notifications that would tell you when a bunch of stuff's being encrypted.
Alarm fatigue.
Yeah, exactly. Alarm fatigue. Because I know, like on my laptop, I have Patrick Wardle's software for Macs where it alerts you anytime something's getting encrypted. It goes off all the time, just doing mundane things. So I've gotten to the point sometimes where I'll just whatever, which I know is bad.
So before we scare you guys too much, I want to throw out a couple resources. And in particular, the number one I'm going to throw out, if we could switch to my screen, is going to be ransomware, which is what Michael was talking about. This is by our friend Patrick Wardle. And it's a really interesting project that allows you, 2018, Patrick. It's a really great project that allows you to identify when files are, or when programs are acting suspiciously. So if some random process on your system all of a sudden started rapidly encrypting a bunch of files, you would probably want to know about it. And this is something for the Mac OS system that will be able to organically identify this. And even if you get a couple false positives, my opinion is it's better to know if all your precious files are being rapidly encrypted than to not know and only figure it out when your system crashes and leaves you with a ransom letter.
One key word there, though, is rapid. We can get into this more later when we talk about our individual softwares we wrote. But one of the basic things I thought of is if these programs are looking for files being rapidly encrypted, what if you just started with the oldest files and just slowly over a period of a day or two encrypted all the files, starting with the ones that are least accessed, so that you're least likely to be noticed.
Yeah, a low and slow approach to ransomware is definitely going to get you better results when it comes to doing things that might elicit a alert like this. For example, if you see kernel service is encrypting files, and then all of a sudden you see a bunch of your important files being encrypted, this looks bad. This is bad. I would click terminate. But at least you have the ability to identify that this is happening, and you have the ability to shut it down. So big shout out to Patrick Wardle for making tools that basically look for suspicious behaviors rather than relying on antivirus signatures to identify malicious agents, because that's basically what we're doing. No one's seen this ransomware that Michael and I have created today. It's going to be, if it's detected at all, it would be detected by looking for suspicious behavior like rapid encryption of files.
And something else that I noticed there too is, notice the name is like kernel_service. Like that's one of those basic layers of social engineering you can do in your ransomware or any kind of malware, is just naming it something that someone would expect to see. So like you mentioned the Adobe Suite encrypting files frequently. Like maybe I would name that like Adobe process or something akin to that. So that if someone saw it, they might be like, oh, hey, that's just Adobe doing its thing.
Especially if you know that person has the software.
Exactly.
Because it would be twice as alarming to not have any Adobe programs and then be like,
yeah.
Adobe's encrypting. Like, what?
Right. And like, like I only spent like an hour on my program. But like if you were trying to make something for real, you could easily find a list of programs that do these sorts of activities and then just have your program scan for those programs on the system when it initiates its attack, and then change the file name based on which programs are on the computer.
Right, you can always try to disguise the process name. Yeah. Okay, so let's start talking about the actual ransomware that we wrote. I chose to go the route of writing a bash script, and I chose to do this because bash is really good for macOS and Linux systems. It's universal, it works very reliably, and it doesn't require a lot of dependencies and stuff. So on any Linux system, all of this should run just fine. In addition to this, I'm going to be using public-private key cryptography to make sure that the victim of this attack, our poor Raspberry Pi computer we have up here, is basically left without any way of decrypting the files, even if they were able to intercept the public key I'm using to encrypt them. So at no point would the victim be able to actually kind of reverse this attack, even if they had the public key, because you need the private key, which never leaves my system, in order to undo this ransomware attack. Michael?
Yeah, so Baby Gremlin basically mainly knows Python. So I kind of just went more of the proof of concept, like Python code route, and just was... The main question I kind of had going into this was, how long would it really take to write for a script kiddie, basically, to write a basic ransomware program? And it took me about an hour to come up with a program that essentially will go to a directory you want and encrypt all the files with a certain file extension there, including any files in subdirectories. And it'll then take the key that it used to encrypt all that and send it off to an email that you designated. Nice. I didn't go into all the like pop-ups like, oh my god, I've encrypted all your stuff, now give me monies, or any of that. Like that would be more of the like fine-tuning kind of elements. I just wanted to see like the basic core working functional part, like how long would that take?
Cool. All right. Well, let's take a look first at our Raspberry Pi. So our Raspberry Pi system should be pretty standard.
No.
Oh, I have to move there we go. No. So Raspberry Pi system should be pretty standard. We're just running Raspbian. It's all nice and easy. And hey, look at this. We have some files on it. So if we open this, we can see some of our favorite files are here. Thank goodness. In our test folder, where we're going to be running Michael's, we've got some more files. Oh, great. Okay, that looks good. Okay, seems like there's a pattern here. I don't need to open this one because I know it's...
Oh my god, it's adorable.
It's not, though. All right, so, and then we got another minion here. Okay, so these are our test dummies. Sorry, Michael, I know how much you treasure minions, but in this case, they're going to be...
No, we're not destroying the minions.
Oh, yes, we absolutely are. All right, so in our secret.txt, this is currently encrypted, but I'm going to just do some stuff here.
Let's say, a basic sentence.
Hi.
Hello, world.
This is my deepest,
darkest, terriblest secret.
Please to keep it okay. All right, so we're going to save this. Exit. And if I open a terminal window, I'm going to cd into desktop. I'm also going to make this way bigger. And so if I cd into test, I can see we have secret.txt. And there we go. All right, so I'm also gonna I'm gonna copy secrets.txt to the desktop. Let's see if I can. Okay, cd back to the desktop. Okay, cool. So we have secrets.txt both in Michael's little test folder, and we have secrets.txt on the desktop. Let me make sure it still contains my secrets. Okay, cool. Yes, it does. All right, so the test is set up. We basically have two scripts that are loaded up here, and they're both designed to do basically the same thing. They're designed to encrypt files of interest on the system, and then they are designed to somehow send the key to that encryption off-site so that somebody else can intercept it. Now, there's bonus points here for making it more difficult for the victim to reverse engineer this attack. That means if the key is ever generated on the system, it should be deleted immediately, and there basically shouldn't be any way for the victim to reverse engineer a key or use a key that's left on the system to decrypt the files. So that's really the goal here is to make this kind of a one-way process until we say so. And my script is going to be addressing that by using basically an RSA public-private key pair to ensure that my private key never leaves my system, but my public key is used to encrypt the random key that we're encrypting all the other files with. So sounds a little complicated. We'll get into that. But first, let's go ahead and take a look at Michael's project so we can see how his script works.
I guess.
So I can either pull it up on the Pi or I can pull it up on your screen. Whoa, that's small and long.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it'll be fine. Text size.
It's very small. Go to PyCharm. Preferences. And then go to when it opens. There we go. Go to editor. We just had this problem.
Yeah.
Font. And make it big.
Size. What do you
22.
think? 22.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay, cool. All right, so now you guys can see it. So the first thing that you've done, I see, is you've imported.
Yeah. So glob is basically one of the things. Glob and OS are basically stuff I'm using to navigate around the file structure.
Okay.
So that allows me to once I have a directory, I can walk across all the files in that directory and any subdirectories under that.
Got it.
Yagmel is... I chose email just because it was really easy to do. I'm not super familiar with setting up servers, and I didn't want to fool around with a bunch of that. So I just decided I'll just send the key to my email. Socket, I use that to get the host name. So that way when I send an email, I can know what computer it's for. It's not just from some random computer. And then the main thing for this is the cryptography library. So then I have a bunch of definitions. Like this one will basically just take a file in binary, bytes of a file and encrypt it. This cryptolist just takes a list of files and encrypts them. Old sort is one of the things I tried to implement, where it would basically see the last time that file was accessed and then order them so that the oldest were first. I didn't implement it for the sake of time, any delay, but in a real world situation, I would just put a delay in here and say like, okay, encrypt one file every minute or like one every hour or something like that. Send message. I used just like a throwaway email and I hard coded the password in here. So like, not recommended in the real world, but this was more of a proof of concept thing. But yeah, literally all you have to do with Yagmail is like basically 2 lines to send an email.
Nice.
So, you did have to change one setting in the Google settings for the account, but yeah. Find files is what I used to essentially locate all the files I wanted. So this just changes to the directory that I designate, and then I loop through and find all the files with a certain extension. And then we just do the main call. So, for example, I can have my test folder, any image, PNG. And then it sends the email with that key. I use symmetric encryption, GPG, I think. It was just whichever one I could find online. The easiest it was Fairnet, symmetric encryption. Literally, basically copied and pasted this, right? Like using cryptography library. I did look into using the PyCrypto library, which seems like it's much more versatile. However, I was running into problems, probably user error, nothing on the library, but I scrapped that and went with cryptography very quickly. Any specific questions? I probably glossed over a lot of the minutia there.
No, okay. So I can see that you created a bunch of different functions. If you scroll down, I want to see the main code loop.
Yeah, so it generates a key, and then it sends the email of the system hostname and the key, and then it starts encrypting everything.
Nice. Okay. All right.
So even if it were stopped, I would have I wouldn't want to send the key after this, because if it got caught in the middle, then I could have a bunch of stuff encrypted on your computer and not have the key, right? So I decided to send the key first.
Nice. Okay. So let's switch back to the Raspberry Pi, and we'll actually run this program and see what happens. All right. So there's a couple things to note here. First is there needs to be Python 3 installed on the computer you're doing this on in order for this to work. So if it's not installed by default, this will not work.
Right.
Second is this requires a requirements.txt setup script or something else to ensure that the required modules are installed in Python. Because two of them are not installed by default.
Yeah. Or you would have that bundled in such a way that when the program was run, it already had that all downloaded.
Right. Yeah. That's typically requirements.txt script to just download any requirements beforehand.
Yeah.
But yeah, so keep in mind that if you're going to just try to run this on your computer, which by the way, be very careful before you do that because you're just emailing your information to Michael, then just realize that you will need to install some modules in Python in order to get this up and running. So we've already installed them, but if it doesn't work for you, that's probably
well. And if you did want to test this out yourself, you can very easily go up to the send definition and change the email and password to something that you control.
Right. But you would still need to install some Python modules.
Yeah.
All right. So here we are in this folder, our test folder, and we have a couple different things. We have a secret text file. We have a ransom.py file. We have a couple images, and then we also have a deep meme folder, which has an additional image in it. So this has some subdirectories.
So before you even run this,
I'm going to go into it and edit it.
As I was told before we started this was just one file type, and I noticed that there's two JPEGs, a PNG, and a text file. So my program is currently designed to only target one file type.
Great, let's change it. So where do we need to change? So this is .txt?
Yeah, so what you can do is just crypt list, just copy that entire line and duplicate it, and for the different file types.
Okay, I can't just add it as additional arguments.
Yeah, it's not set up for that.
Okay.
But
No.
Or yeah, and then just change JPG or JPG, whatever. Yeah, whatever extension, and then PNG.
Okay, so now Michael's script has been augmented to hunt for different stuff. We are in. We're just gonna hopefully execute this in the folder that it's in. We've commented out, I think, one line in order to make this just go into the folder that we
I think
are currently executing it in.
You typo there.
Where?
JPG, JPEG. Actually, I misspoke. No.
What do you want? Okay. So let's go ahead and run it. And first, again, we'll just ls, see what it looks like now. Now we'll do Python 3.
Yeah. And also, some of my debugging text is still in there. It doesn't interfere with the the way it runs it all.
I would actually prefer if this had way more comments in it.
Yeah.
All right, so we're running it.
Oh yeah, I didn't.
It's doing some stuff, and email sent successfully.
Yeah.
So we can see there's some feedback. Let's type ls and see what the heck happened. Oops.
Yeah, all those lists there are just where I was debugging stuff to make sure like my list sorting was working correctly, and the email sent was just so that I didn't have to check
So we
my
can
email.
now see that the minions are completely trashed.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
And to be clear, I also wrote the program to decode all of this stuff too. So you would just give it the key. If you want...
Wait, when you say decode, you mean decrypt?
Decrypt, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Well, if it didn't decrypt it, wouldn't it not be ransomware?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, but,
All right,
but the one program there does not do that.
Okay,
It's a separate...
Yeah. Okay, cool. So let's go to the deep meme folder, and we can see that all of these are also deep fried.
Yeah.
They've been destroyed.
Everything all the way down.
Yeah,
It's
that's
turtles
awful.
all the way down.
I don't know what that means, but it's terrible. So let's see. Can we go to the desktop? Okay. Woo, thank
Wait,
goodness.
why did that one survive?
Because this folder was above
Oh,
the
yeah.
one.
Okay,
So
yeah.
we didn't take out any files or any secrets
Right.
that were in the folder above this, but we did take out everything that was below.
Yeah, and like my program is kind of designed to be somewhat surgical. That was mainly just for testing. Like I could have designated any like arbitrary folder all the way up to the root, right? Assuming you had permissions. But mine just takes like a target folder and will do anything down from that. So yeah, if you had access to the root, you could have just done that slash. And
Yep.
mine.
You absolutely could, and it would go after everything.
Yeah. And just so you can see what it looks like on my end, and this is the email I get. A way of compromise, this is some Raspberry Pi, and then it sends me this key, so I would copy this bit here, and I'd have the ability to decrypt the files.
Great.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, cool. So this gets the job done. You get the information you need. And while there are some hard-coded credentials in the actual Python file that might lead someone to, be able to figure out maybe what was going on a little bit, it's still a really good way to very quickly encrypt files and then get the information out there.
Yeah. Like this was more of a proof of concept, and like, yes, like there being a hard-coded password in there is a flaw for sure. However, it doesn't matter if they were to access that email, because I could have. In the real world, I could have sent it to another email or anything like that. Just for the purposes of demonstration, I just sent it to the same email.
All right, so now we're going to take a look at my script. And
Do you want to show your screen?
Nope, because we're doing it on the Raspberry Pi. All right, so let's do cd. We're going to go down to the root directory, ls, and you can see I've got two things here, ransom.link.txt and ransom.sh. So I chose to do this in a bash script because I love bash scripting. It's short, it's efficient, it's cross-platform. Let's cat the ransom.sh. And we can see that my script is pretty short.
Well, it's short, but it's also calling a bunch of text from a GitHub, so...
No, it's not. So what this, and I'm going to explain this step by step. So this is, so I just want to fit this all on the screen so you guys can see that this is 1, 2, 3, 4 lines, Michael.
Yeah, okay, but show what's on that GitHub link there.
So the most important part of the script, Michael's just noticed, it is the first part, which is getting the encryption key we're going to be using. So if I was an attacker, this would not be hosted on GitHub. This would be hosted on xlf197421.net that I bought for 22 cents and filed on some fake name. And the important part here is we are not generating any keys on the system that we're going to leave behind. And we are not basically encrypting this whole thing with the key that could be intercepted. So we need to talk a little bit about asymmetric cryptography and the way that I chose to do this project. So let's nano.
Kody here heavily invested in working on this project.
This is fun. This was a lot of fun. So my goals were to use some things that people that actually do ransomware really, really like. For example, having a public key to encrypt things with rather than a private key, so that nobody without the private key it can possibly decrypt something, even if they're able to reverse engineer parts of the script. So I love that. I think it's super cool. And that's what my first line here does. So this is a simple curl request. I am decoding it from base 64. Base 64 is typically used to preserve information when you're sending it via URLs or anything like that. So if you have too many special characters, it can get messed up in transit. So I stored a public RSA cryptography key in a GitHub file, just in a text file. And what I'm doing here is I'm converting it from base 64 and then putting it into a file called pub.pem. And I just put pub1, but it could be pub anything. And this is a public key in a PEM file. And a PEM file is a public key, is a key file that can be used for things like OpenSSL, which is what I'm going to be using next. Okay, so first step, we download an encryption key that can only be used to encrypt the file. It cannot be used to decrypt the file. All right, so step 2, we are going to create a completely random password on the system that's 32 characters, a 32-character hex password. This is super, super long. It's random. It's never going to be cracked. So when we have that, we're going to create a temporary file called random password. And then we're going to we're going to encrypt this random password with the encryption key we downloaded. So this is what we're going to be sending off and making sure we have access to. Because this big long number that we generated, which we're immediately going to be getting rid of, is going to be wrapped up in some encryption that we know how to decrypt and sent back up to the attacker. So at this point, we have created the random password.encrypted file. So that means it's time for my favorite thing. Basically doing tracking and abusing a tracking server to exfiltrate data. So we have this canary token link. And what this canary token link is doing is it's receiving the base 64 random password.encrypted file. So this is an encrypted version of the password we're about to use to encrypt everything on the system.
Why base 64? It just to obfuscate it a little, or
no, just to preserve the integrity of the data while it's being transferred. So I notice if you don't do this, then the curl request will fail because there's a bunch of characters that cause it to get messed up and confused. So to make sure that this is, it's called URL safe. Base 64ing is very commonly, and yes, also to obfuscate a little bit, but base 64ing is commonly done to just preserve the integrity of data as you transfer it from place to place, especially via JSON and stuff like this. So we transfer it into a base 64 request, we send it off to our canary token, and there we go. At that point, we've managed to get the information the attacker needs off of the system. So that leaves one thing to do, Michael.
Encrypt a bunch of
ransom. Well, I guess, no, not ransom, just encrypt. All right, so we have for F in asterisk, so that's for all files in whatever folder we're in, do, and then we're basically telling it to open the file that we're currently on.
That looks like so much gibberish to
me
I know. Right now.
All right, so this first part of the script is just saying for all files in the current directory, do this thing to it, so it's opening up one of them. We're going to use SSL. We're encrypting it with AES, 256 bits. We're adding assault to it, which basically just adds to the level of complexity. We're, for the in file, the file that we're encrypting, it's just whatever one in the loop we're on. So of all the files in the system that we have access to right now, as we iterate through them, this is just whichever one we're on. The out file is going to be the same file name, but .enc, so it'll be encrypted. And then the password file we're using for it is the random password file.
And so OpenSSL is on every system?
Yep, OpenSSL is included by default in every Linux system.
Linux system.
Yeah, every Linux system. Well, this is Bash is going to be. You can use Bash and like PowerShell if you really try, so you can do it. But this is
so this is limited then to Linux.
Mac OS and Linux systems, but you can also pull this out in PowerShell. So don't disrespect. So if we continue on, you can see that it says done, but guess what, Michael? I'm not done. Instead, I'm also going to remove every file that matches a JPEG or a text file. And of course, if I want to add to this, it's really easy. I can just do, I don't have to copy the whole line, of course. I can just do rm, let's do asterisk dot PNG, just in case a couple of these minions are PNGs. And then we're also going to get rid of every random password file, so the encrypted version and the unencrypted version. And we're going to get rid of the public key. We don't need to, but let's just clean up and be nice about it, right?
Sure.
All right, so this is what's going to be running. And if I wanted to, I could also do, I I could also leave a ransom message, but I'm not going to do that. Michael didn't do it. I'm not going to do it. So let's go ahead and save this.
Well, like I was saying, this in my mind was more of just a proof of concept kind of thing.
It's always a competition, Michael. All right, so
someone spent 5 hours and wants to justify that.
I was eating
Meanwhile,
for 2 of those hours, and I also took a shower.
Okay.
All right. So we're going to move this ransom.sh, or actually let's copy it, just in case we encrypt it. So we're going to copy ransom.sh, and we're going to copy it to the desktop. But there is something even easier that I really like here. So before we go to the desktop, if we look, we can see ransomlink.txt. What's that? Let's cat it. So this is a single command line option to just, do the whole damn thing.
Nice.
So I basically just took this script, I uploaded it to GitHub, and then if I want to just run this, it will do everything in one line. Beautiful.
That's,
Beautiful.
That definitely sounds like something that you could social engineer someone into doing pretty easily.
Oh, definitely. I think that it would be very easy
or
to
in
do
my
that.
mind, like we've talked about the DigiSpark and Wi-Fi dock and other human interface devices like that. That's like that could be run so quickly on a literally you could drive by.
My original plan for this was to load it up on a Wi-Fi dock or a USB rubber ducky and just plug it in and run it just to show you guys what it would look like.
Mm-hmm.
You guys will have to imagine it. I mean, It can be done. It's very easy, but for the sake of brevity, in fact, we're almost out of time. We're going to go ahead and just run this way. So, okay, so let's go back to the folder. We're going to go to the desktop here, and we can see that we still have our minions. We still have our secrets. Great. Let's go ahead and run my script. So it's going to be bash ransom script. And one thing that can... Oh, not ransom script.txt. We want it to be ransom.sh. Okay. Ransom.sh. So one thing that can come up is if you don't give this executing privileges, then you can run into a problem. So chmod plus x, and then your script is the best thing to run first. But it'll usually still work anyway. Just wanted to be safe about that. So bash
escalated privileges.
All right, so it's downloading the encryption key. It's got the encryption key. It's going to then upload the new key, and boom, it's removed, well, everything it could find. So if I type ls, then we can see that there are some things here. So I didn't program it to remove PNGs, but I did program it to basically get rid of other stuff. So let's go back to the desktop, and we can see we've got these encrypted files. So these encrypted files cannot be reversed without the specific key.
You changed the file extension.
Yeah, I changed the file extension.
I didn't change the file extensions on mine.
Yeah, so these...
I literally just read the file and then wrote over it.
So if I really wanted to make this nastier, which I do, I absolutely do, what I'm going to... Oh, and let me go over to my computer. You can see the canary token got triggered. If I go and take a look at the message... I can see that in the user agent, I've gotten the encryption key. So this is the base 64 version of the encryption key.
Yeah.
So not only did I get the IP address of this particular computer, I also got the encryption key for me to decrypt the files on it.
Yeah. So you, in some ways, you fought that battle smarter, where I fought that harder. Because I tried to use Python to generate the host name and do all that, where you just let canary tokens do that.
Well, I have a lot more experience stealing data with canary tokens.
Yeah.
It's something I've been doing in Arduino projects for a long time. So my thought is an attacker would actually just have a server up there, like a command and control server that accepts it and basically registers it and then is able to either remotely control it if they want to stay on the system, or at least register the information for if they want to give the key to the person who pays them.
Is the code to canary tokens open source? Could I make my own website?
You can make your own canary tokens. There's portions of it I think that are closed source for the more advanced stuff, but they have an open source version of canary tokens that you can run on your own server.
For basic stuff like this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I like mine because anybody can create a canary token. It's super, super easy to do so. And I just think it's a great way to get started exfiltrating small pieces of data like what we're doing here.
Right.
So if I go back to mine right here, we're towards the end of our segment, so we can pay a little bit less attention to keeping the Raspberry Pi alive. So let's go to nano ransom.sh. And on my last line, I have something that says which things we're going to delete. If I really want to be hardcore about this, let's not say PNGs. Let's say everything.
Wouldn't that delete your encrypted files as well, then? Could you say delete everything that isn't encrypted?
That's a great point. I'm gonna say cancel. So, all right. So then, at the very least, I need this to remove .star.png and remove JPEG.
Yeah.
All right, let's see if that will destroy these minions.
Launch the tactical move.
All right, so
yeah, and is all that text on screen just like come up by default, or were you intentionally having that pop up for like debugging?
I was intentionally having that. I can suppress it if I want to.
Yeah.
All right, so the minions survived, but the text files didn't. What I suspect might be the case here is, oh, and I got another email. I suspect that the case might be that these need to be lowercase, like an exact match.
Yeah.
Let's see if that works.
The joys of coding.
Right?
You spend 5 hours looking for that one quote you missed.
Whoa, we're getting a lot of encrypted stuff here. All right, let's see if we manage. The minions are gone! The minions are gone! I'm so happy. I'm so happy.
You destroyed the minions.
Yes, I've destroyed the minions, but they can be brought back. Don't worry.
Long live the minions.
Minions never really die, I guess. I don't know. I've never seen that movie, but I'm assuming that they're fine somewhere. And in this case, we can always retrieve these if we want to go to my email and take a look at the key that was sent to me. We can reverse this damage, but unless Michael pays me a hefty sum, these minions are never coming back. All right. Yeah. Well, I think that's a pretty good demonstration of ransomware and how this stuff works. If you guys want to check out the code we've written, we'll make sure to drop it in the description so you guys can see what it takes to just design a little ransomware proof of concept and see if you could detect it or if it's able to actually go against things on your system and effectively delete them. Now, I have a warning about this. Make sure that you are doing this either in a virtual machine on a Raspberry Pi or isolated from the rest of your system, or you are really, really sure about what you're doing. Because in the course of this, I completely deleted my script, twice. Because I, while cleaning up other files, used a command line expression that deleted what I was working on. So make sure that you are putting the script in a separate directory from the ones you're deleting everything in, and also make sure that you are not deleting your entire file system. We're not messing around with this cryptography. Both of the scripts that we wrote will actually encrypt your system if they are configured to. So don't just run this one. It will work because we didn't spend that much time on it, but it'll get the job done.
Well, and more importantly, if you're like trying to design software to detect these types of things, like these will generally work as like because they basically are ransomware, so they replicate the action. So more importantly, don't use these as actual ransomware. Use these maybe as test beds to test your own software for detecting ransomware. Maybe take some of the thoughts we've had on basically the arms race between detection and ransomware to make your software more intelligent and better able to detect ransomware that's using base64 and canary tokens or doing the slow roll on encrypting stuff, so on and so forth. In fact, there is a certain corporate program that would be very good at detecting this one.
Yes. So part of what I love about Patrick Wardle's system is it basically looks for suspicious behaviors rather than looking for like virus signatures. Now, of course, our sponsor Varonis also does something very similar. So if you're a company that's worried about ransomware, you want to be able to detect suspicious behaviors, such as a whole bunch of files being very rapidly encrypted or users accessing data and doing things that are very suspicious, like stealing or encrypting them that they don't normally access. All this behavior can be caught with Varonis. So if you're interested, make sure to check it out, as well as the AD PowerShell workshops. There's a lot of really great free content that Varonis puts out in the AD PowerShell workshops. Really great. So if you want to check it out, we will probably put a link in the description so you guys can find it. It's a great way to get started with Active Directory scripting in PowerShell.
Yeah.
And by the way, if you guys accidentally encrypt your entire system with my program, please reach out to me and let me know. I will sell you back the files for an extremely reasonable price. I'm feeling generous.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, that's all we have today. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. This was a lot of fun. If you have any more questions about ransomware, or if you want us to go more into depth in the future, let me know. And aside from that, we'll see you next time.